What is going on in the real estate market right now? Is it a good time to buy a house? Is it a not good time to buy a house? Should you wait until next year? What about selling the house? Should you sell now or wait for the future? What are interest rates doing? Hey, we're about halfway through the year of 2024, and so I wanted to give you guys a real estate market update. Plus, there are some laws going to affect this summer that are making changes forever to the real estate industry. We'll talk about all of that coming right up. All right, hey guys, what's going on? It's Eric Sztanyo from Keller Williams Realty and Team Sztanyo.com, where we are helping you find your home and strengthen your family. Wanted to check in here because we're about halfway through the year, and I gotta say, this year's real estate market has been a little bit odd. It's been a little bit different, and I wanted to let you guys know what's going on. I'm having these conversations with you all the time for people who are here locally, looking to buy or sell, or people who are looking to move to the Cincinnati area. So I thought, hey, we're about halfway through the year. Let's stop in and do a quick update, look at some stats, and talk about some of the changes that are gonna be happening going forward. All right, let me start by giving you kind of a general overview of what we're seeing day in and day out in the marketplace, and then we'll dive into the stats so you guys can actually see that. So for those of you who like charts and stats and numbers, we'll dig into that as well. If you don't like that, maybe you can get up and go get a snack during that portion of the video.
Classic American snack.
And of course, real estate is local, so every neighborhood and every property is gonna be a little bit different. But as a whole, what we're seeing in the market right now in 2024 is inventory is still low, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One, there's still high buyer demand for that. But two, because interest rates have stayed up, there's a lot of sellers who have been thinking about selling. They've got a lot of equity in their house, but maybe they're locked into an interest rate around 2, 3, maybe 4%. And they're looking at, they could sell their house and cash in on the equity, but what could they buy with that? And then getting maybe a 7% loan is not all that attractive. So a lot of those sellers are keeping their homes. Those homes aren't coming on the market unless it's a situation where the seller has to sell the house. Maybe they're moving out of town. Maybe they need to upsize or downsize and they can't stay where they're at. So inventory is low, but the other thing we are seeing is that we're really bumping into that affordability ceiling. Housing prices have not come down over the past few years. They've gone up for many years in a row now. Now they have slowed down a little bit, but with interest rates going up and housing prices up, we're just kind of hitting that ceiling of what buyers can tolerate and can afford. So what does that mean in the day-to-day on the market? Well, if you're out there shopping and you're looking at Zillow or Realtor.com or anywhere else, you're seeing this firsthand. If a property comes on the market and it's in good condition and it's really pretty and it's priced right, that home will still sell very fast. In fact, it'll also go into multiple offers. Might see 1, 2, 3, 4 offers. Now, it's not seeing 5, 10, 15, 20 multiple offers that we saw in 2020, 2021, 2022. So there's less demand because, again, that affordability issue is pushing it down, but homes that are priced right and in good condition are still selling fast. Now, what about those homes that aren't in peak condition and maybe just a little bit overpriced? On the other hand of the market, you'll see some of those that are sitting a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe even more. Those sellers are looking around at their neighbors. Maybe they're pushing their property a little bit too far. Maybe it's not in the best of condition. And those are properties on the market that are sitting a little bit. You're seeing that days on market creep up. So for the past several years, buyers have been at a real disadvantage. But if you're willing to take a home that maybe has a few warts on it, maybe people are passing, maybe it's not in peak condition, maybe the carpets need replaced and it needs some cosmetic updates, those are properties that you can come in without multiple offers and maybe even get those under list price. And that all comes down to what kind of a buyer are you? Do you want to move into a home that is move-in ready and everything's done for you? Or are you willing to roll up your sleeves a little bit, maybe hire some contractors, even do some of the work yourself? You might be able to get a deal on these properties that are sitting for a little bit and then make the house your own as you go. Now, if you're in that first camp where you want to have a move-in ready home, you might also want to consider new construction. It's move-in ready, it's in good shape, you're not gonna have to worry about repairs for a while, and you're kind of limiting the competition of other buyers in terms of getting to a bidding war of multiple offers or anything like that. All right, so there's a high-level overview of the market. We're gonna dig into the stats next, and remember, stay tuned to the end of the video because we're gonna talk about some major changes that are happening in the real estate industry and how they affect you. All right, as of recording this video, we are in mid-June. We've got stats through May of 2024, and we're looking at the Hamilton, Butler, Warren, and Clermont counties. These are the 4 major counties surrounding the Cincinnati area on the Ohio side. So the median sold price for a home in May of 2024 was $310,000. Year to date, that number is $290,000, and it was $270,000 year to date last year. So that's a gain of 7.4% in the median sale price in the Cincinnati area. That's about consistent with what we've seen in terms of the last 2 years. Maybe in 2021 and 2022, we saw 10, even 15%. But the last 2 years, we've seen closer to 5-7% growth on a year-to-date basis. All right, next, looking at the amount of units sold. In May, it's up 9.4% over the previous month with 1,852 months sold. Again, year to date, the amount of units sold is up 4% from 6,857 to 6,590. Now, what we saw last year at the end of really summer and heading into fall and winter was those rates really took a steep incline up. And so that caused a lot of buyers to come out of the market at the end of 2023, and a lot less units were sold. At the beginning of 2024, we saw rates drop just a little bit, and it was kind of a frenzy in February, March, and even into April. But since rates have then climbed back up to 7% and they didn't go down like the Fed indicated, more buyers have pulled out. And so it's been kind of a weird market where there was almost more buyer activity earlier in the spring, and it's pulling back a little bit in the summer here. Now, in terms of the month of May, active inventory was at 1,815 units. That's up 28% over April. Again, that's typically what we see seasonally, that as you are heading into spring and summer, you see the most inventory and activity in April, May, and June, and it kind of holds there in July and then starts to come down in August as you're heading into the fall. The median days on market was 3 days on market. So again, you'll see some of those properties that are sitting for a few weeks, but on average, the median days on market, it's only 3. They're still going fast. All right, so now I want to transition and show you 2 more charts covering the last 2 years of data so you can, again, get a little bit more context about what's happening in the Cincinnati area. Okay, this first chart is showing the median price of homes sold over the last 2 years, and you can kind of see this trend line in 2023, but overall, it's comparing 2024 or the end of 2023 to 2024 over the previous year, and it's up 10%. So that median sales price we just looked at in the other data at $310,000 for May, if you look at that median sales price 2 years ago, it was $276,000. So again, home prices continue to go up. If you're asking the question, should I wait? Is it a bubble? Is it gonna crash? Guys, it just keeps going up. Home prices just keep going up. It's not really a bubble because if you go back to the last time we had a bubble, and I understand people are still thinking of kind of 08, 09, and 10 and that recession we had, the difference is we had a ton of inventory back then. We just don't have that inventory now. We're not gonna have it for years to come. It's really hard, and it takes a long time for developers to develop land and build new product on the market that's gonna meet all of this demand. And so it's hard to see prices coming down anytime soon. All right, now I wanna switch over to this chart of months supply of inventory. So a balanced real estate market where it's not a seller's market, not a buyer's market, is where there's 6 months of inventory on the market. That means if no new homes came on the market, everything would sell in 6 months. We've been well below 6 months for years now. Now we do see, going back into last year, this is kind of what I mentioned previously, heading from summer into fall and into the winter when the interest rates really spiked, that's where we saw the highest, and it hit up to 2 months of inventory. And that's the highest we've seen in several years here. But now in May of 2024, we're back to 1 month supply of inventory. Again, what does that mean? There's not a lot of homes for sale out there. They're going fast, and it's still a seller's market. All right, guys, so there is some context on where the market is at and where it's going. If you have more questions about that, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and reach out to us at info@teamsztanyo.com. We'd love to answer any more questions you have, or leave a comment below. We'll answer your questions there as well. All right, before we wrap this video, I promise we talk about these major changes that are happening nationwide and some laws that are being implemented come August of 2024. All right, I'll try to break this down really simply, but the 2 rules that are changing is, number 1, if you're a buyer and you want to go see a house, you have to first meet up with a real estate agent and sign a buyer agency agreement. Now, typically in the past, sellers are used to selling listing agreements with an agent. It's basically a contract that says, I'm hiring you to sell my house. Well, now we're moving that to the buyer side, and there's about 50% of the places nationally that have this already, so it's nothing new. Here in Cincinnati, most agents don't do that, haven't used this practice at all. But basically, there's a one-pager that says, hey, I'm hiring you. I like you as my real estate agent. I want you to go help me find a house, the right house for me, for my family, and I'm gonna pay you X%. Now that percent is negotiable. I will say that standard typically around here is around 3%. That's what we do with Team Sztanyo, but it is negotiable. And that's a big reason for these changes is they're decoupling that conversation around commissions, and they wanted buyers to know up front what they're paying. You can't say as an agent, as a buyer's agent anymore, I'm free to you. That's really never was the case. They weren't free. It was just the seller was paying that commission on the back end at the sale. And so agents were saying to their buyers, I don't cost you anything, or I'm free. Now you're gonna have to sign that agreement up front that says, hey, I cost 3% or whatever that amount is. I'm gonna help you find a house, and I'm gonna work really hard to get that seller or that builder to pay my full commission so you don't have to. But just so you know, if they're not gonna pay that full commission, you might have to pay the difference. So that conversation is happening on the front end. That law is gonna go into place in August. At Team Sztanyo, we're already having this conversation and we're putting these buyer agency agreements in place. So we just want to give you a heads up. This change is coming. We want to get ahead of the ball and just say, this makes sense. Let's have that conversation on the front end. That way you know who you're working with, you know how they get paid. It's clearly communicated on the front end. Okay, so that's change number one. Change number two is that sellers will no longer be able to advertise what they're going to pay a co-op broker or the buyer's agent on the MLS. So let me break that down. What does that mean? Does that mean sellers will no longer pay commission? No, and I think honestly in about 95% of situations makes the most sense for sellers still to pay a buyer's agent that commission because they want the most exposure for their house. The way to get exposure is to have the most buyers come to the property. The way to do that is to pay the buyer's agent's commissions. So let's break this down really quick. If a buyer has already signed a buyer agency agreement with a buyer's agent that says, I'm gonna pay you 3%, and a seller says, well, I'm not gonna pay you 3%, I'm only gonna pay you 2%. Well, then the agent has to tell the buyer, hey, we can go see that house that you like to see, but they're only paying me 2%, so you have to pay the additional 1%. So on top of your closing costs and your down payment, you also have to pay 1% of my commission. Do you still wanna go see that house? Now it's up to the buyer. They can say yes or no, but if they have to pay more, they might say no. So again, I think most sellers are gonna be offering that 3%. They just can't advertise it in any way on the MLS anymore. And how that co-op commission will get communicated is still being worked out. And so more than likely, the buyer's agent will be calling or texting the listing agent, say, are you offering co-op commission? The answer will be yes or no. There'll be an extra step of communication on the front end. So the industry will figure out how to communicate this properly, but the rule states you just can't put it on the MLS anymore. So again, there are a lot of headlines out there. There's probably a lot of confusion out there as well. If you have any more questions about that, leave a comment below or give us a call. We'd love to chat through that with you. All right, guys, there you go. There's an update of the real estate market here in the Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky area, as well as what's happening with the changes in the industry. I hope that was helpful for you. We often do this on our YouTube lives on Sundays when I'm recording that, but I thought it might be good to do this just in a more concise way so more people can see it. I hope your summer is going amazing. I hope you're enjoying a beach or a pool somewhere and a nice cold drink, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Hoo day, let's go Reds. We'll see you in the next one.